Well, in 2009, we were the first group to report that nitric oxide is part of the insulin signaling. And now we understand that to be the case because once insulin is secreted from the pancreas, right, it binds to insulin receptors on most cells, mainly muscle cells, fat cells, and even liver cells. And then that insulin tells the cell to take up glucose, clear it from the circulation. Well, the terminal step in that process is a protein called GLUT4. It's cytosolic, and then when it goes to the membrane, it binds glucose. Well, the signal for GLUT4 to translocate is nitric oxide. So if the cell is unable to produce nitric oxide, you develop insulin resistance. So you get more insulin secreted, but yet GLUT4 doesn't get the signal. And that's the fundamental basis for insulin resistance is nitric oxide deficiency. So now when we restore the cell's ability to produce nitric oxide, you can potentiate insulin signaling. You get GLUT4 translocation, you clear glucose from the circulation, and then it tells the pancreas, stop secreting insulin, and so you normalize the entire metabolic response. But without nitric oxide, you get hyperglycemia, then you get the hyperinsulinemia, which is the inflammatory component of diabetes, and it's all because the cell can't make nitric oxide. So if we fix the cell's ability to make nitric oxide, we improve insulin signaling and overcome most metabolic disease.
So over the last 3 years, what I've noticed with the spike protein affecting the ACE2 receptor in the liver is that people are having hypoglycemia or hypoinsulinemia and over-exaggerated insulin responses. And would this be related to a depletion of nitric oxide?
Well, here's what we know in terms of, there's two components to this, right? There's a vascular component and the upregulation of the adhesion molecules, including the ACE receptor. And it's nitric oxide that downregulates that. So if there's less adhesion molecules expressed, there's less monocytes and neutrophils sticking lying in the blood vessel. It also downregulates the ACE2 receptor, so there's less target for the spike protein to attach to and start the inflammatory cascade. So nitric oxide downregulates all those. So you basically decrease the number of targets that the spike protein can bind to. But in terms of the insulin response, so let me make another very important point. Part of our immune system's ability to shut down virus from replicating is the ability to mobilize an immune response and produce nitric oxide. So when we're exposed to any virus, call it COVID, call it the seasonal flu or RSV or any virus, the body responds with an increased circulation, mobilize an immune response. The immune cells go to the site of attachment. The immune cells produce a lot of nitric oxide, and the nitric oxide actually prevents the virus from replicating. So as long as you got good circulation, a robust immune response, we're exposed to viruses every day. Some people get sick, some people don't. The people who don't get sick from COVID or any virus infection is those that can make nitric oxide, have ample circulation, sufficient nitric oxide. Because if you can't make nitric oxide, the virus replicates, it propagates throughout the body, and those are the people who get sick. And that explained the entire pandemic, the global pandemic of COVID, where the people who got sick and died from COVID were the people who couldn't make nitric oxide. The elderly, those with diabetes, hypertension, previous heart attacks, smokers, all of those patients are nitric oxide deficient and explain the increased risk and susceptibility to COVID. And it's not just COVID, it's the seasonal flu that we've known about for the past 100 years.